All right. Well, welcome everybody. Unfortunately, it looks like we did run into a Zoom issue where they are capping the attendees at 100, even though we upgraded for the big meeting. So that's a bummer. But what we will do is we are going to record today's chat, today's webinar, and we will have that available. We'll post it on the website, and we will send it out to everybody who registered for the webinar here today. So if you have colleagues or folks that you know that were going to be joining in today that didn't get in under the cap, it just let the first 100 people in, then please let them know that we will be sending that out and they can view that resource, and we will be emailing that out shortly. So we are going to go ahead and get started since we have as many as we're going to get at this point. So welcome. My name is Scott McMurray. I am the Executive Director of Sources of Strength. And today we're going to be kind of walking you through a little bit of our thinking and our response and our resources. So I'm not going to say too much because Mish is going to start us off and she's going to kind of outline you on some of what we're doing. So I'm gonna turn myself off. We'll kick it over to Mish, and then you'll hear from a handful of Sources of Strength staff over the course of the Zoom chat today. Originally, our intent was this was going to be relatively conversational, but because of the size of group that we ended up having register, we are going to have it be a little bit more guided and led by us, and then we will have some opportunities for you all to fill out some polls and give us some information in the chat so that we can be hearing from you and then responding on kind of more one-on-one calls and support with you all as well. So go ahead, Mish, take it away.
Hi, good morning or afternoon, just based on where you are. We are so excited to have this webinar, and as the numbers kept growing, we just kept thinking, man, imagine, if this many adult advisors and coordinators are willing to watch this webinar, imagine how many students that means that are being touched even during this tough time. So thank you so much. We want everyone to know that all of these sources staff is safe in their respective homes, whether that is in the Denver area or in Bismarck, North Dakota. So we're doing well. But, for today, as again, like Scott said, this isn't as much of a Q&A as we would have liked for it to be, but I would give you just an idea of what we are hoping to do today. Today, we would love to, do a quick poll. Our staff is all here, but, we can't play the chair game, mostly social distancing and being all around the country. So we've got a quick poll. What is your role with sources? We want to know who all is here. Adult advisor, a trainer, staff, parent, regional coordinator, or other. So if you would, you should see a poll on your screen right now. Take a quick poll and let us know who you are. And we will hopefully get some of those results up soon. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. What we are hoping to accomplish, couple of different things, about 3 different things. One, we want to connect to ourselves and to each other. So we'll start out, I'll lead us in kind of just a reflection moment. Won't last too long, but taking a moment to catch our breaths. 2, we want to resource you and your teams. We have been working really hard to get some great resources up, and to make sure that we are helping equip you all so that you feel not an extra thing to do, but that you feel, prepared and ready to continue to help support your students. And then finally, we want to hear your questions or requests. Whoever is texting me, please stop texting. I can't make it stop when I've got the microphone on me. So that would be great. Just hold on for just a second. I believe it is some staff members. Anyway, so we are going to, we want to hear your questions, your suggestions. How else can we help you? and support you. But just like everything that we say, we want to do this meeting, as with everything else, with one part fun, one part sharing, and one part planning. All right, so that's what we are going to do. First, we're going to show you a resource that we're pretty proud of right now. I am going to try to share my screen. If Cody will allow me to do that, I will share my screen real quick, and we'll hop over.
Just a second. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'll let you know. Sources has been creating a lot of stuff for you to be able to do while you're at home. I won't get too far into that, but one thing that I am excited that we are doing right now is, all right, just a second, is we are hoping to do some, sorry, as I'm, it's not letting me hop over like it was a minute ago, Cody. Is there a way that, Cody, you could possibly share?
Yes.
Wingo?
Yep. Just a second, everybody. I will be happy to share that.
Thanks.
Can everybody hear me okay? I guess Misha alone that can answer.
I can hear you. I see a lot of people nodding.
All right. Good. All right. We can go show the full version.
Yeah, if you could show that full version, that would be so great.
All right. And I'm going to share that. All right. Close
All right.
Here
we go. Okay, so if you are looking, hopefully you are seeing the Quingo that we've got up, and we are pretty proud of this. This is just quarantine bingo. We've got this set up for not only peer leaders, but also for adult advisors and coordinators, everyone to be able to, check in on how they are doing. Right? And see themselves. We have tried to pull from every part of the wheel and be able to see, just how we're doing. So I want us, this is as close right now as we can get to starting with a game, but I want us to take just a minute, literally about 1 minute, take a look at this, see how many of these you would be able to mark out just for today. And then as you're looking at it, also think about what are some ways that we might set an intention for the rest of our time today. So take a look at that. I'm going to give you about 1 minute on the clock and see how many of you could get a Quingo.
Looking in the comments in the chat box, it looks like Sarah Lee has got a Quingo. Rebecca, yes, you can use all week. Absolutely.
Yes, you can. There's
Sarah Hatfield is coming in. Rebecca made it.
Nice.
They're coming in.
I think I almost have one. I'm kind of all over the board, but anyway. All right, so this is available. We are going to be outlining some of our other resources that we have. This is available on sourcesofstrength.org if you check that out. We're going to get into more of those things, but great. All right. So now that we've got this, I want us to move into just a short kind of mindfulness exercise. And I want us to take a second and kind of check in with ourselves beyond Quingo. We know that this time is unprecedented. We've never really seen anything like this. And we know that our teachers and administrators are bearing a lot of the burden of trying to not only stabilize some students and some teams and coworkers. You also, probably a lot of you have kids at home that all of a sudden you're learning how to teach from home. Who knew? So we're going to take just a minute and kind of catch our breath. I'm really mindful that this might be the first time this week that some of us have actually stopped to catch our breath. So if you would take just a minute and put both feet on the floor, get comfy wherever you are. If you would like, I would love for you to, I invite you to close your eyes. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. That is totally fine. But we are together going to take a second to breathe deep. Become aware of where you might be holding some tension or some stress, if that's in your neck or in your chest or in your stomach. Take a second and breathe deep into those moments. I'm going to challenge you that if you have a to-do list right now near you, turn that over or cover it up with something, because for right now, we're just going to be really present with how we are actually doing. Breath in, out. And right now, we are going to, as we keep kind of scanning our bodies for how we're feeling, I want us to also take 1 second and think, even this week or even today, of what is one fun thing, exciting thing that you have seen this week, whether that is in your own home or among friends or in the community or the world at large. What's one fun or funny thing? And just reflect on that for just a second. Keep breathing. I want you to reflect now. What is one really beautiful thing that you've seen? Maybe that is while you're on a walk. Maybe you have seen someone else be generous. Maybe they've been generous towards you. Maybe that is a peer leader who has really stepped up or you see growing in their strengths. So reflect on that for just a moment. Be grateful for that. Even amongst the chaos, I'm hearing a lot of people say that spring is coming and they're seeing daffodils or flowers blooming. The rest of the world, the birds and nature doesn't know that there's a pandemic. So we can be grateful for that in the moment. And then finally, I want you to think, what is, 2 more, I want you to think, what is one thing you're really grateful for? Try to name something different than you've already thought about. It's one thing you're really grateful for. Reflect on that. And the final thing before we move on, I want you to think about, take a pause and think about, what is an intention that you want to set starting right now? Maybe your morning has been really chaotic. By intention, I don't mean what is something else that you can add to your to-do list that's already a mile long. I want you to think about, what is a word or a thought that you would like to start in this moment applying. Maybe that is compassion for yourself, or grace, or humor, or gratitude. Whatever that is, set an intention. And I'm going to be quiet for the next about 1 minute. And I just want us to breathe and reflect on a fun thing, a beautiful thing, something we're grateful for, and that intention. Couple more deep breaths. All right. I really appreciate that. We are going to turn things over to Mr. Scott Lomurray. He's going to lead us in our next section. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Mish. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to do that. My reflection, actually about 20 minutes ago, my wife texted me that my son was taking his first steps. He is almost 2, and he's been in physical therapy, working on some of those motor skills, and that just happened. So even in the midst of chaos and hecticness, there's growth happening, there's life happening, there's beauty happening. And that was just a really cool thing for me to reflect on. So I wanted to share that with all of you. Arlo is walking, so that's pretty fun. You know, we recognize this is a pretty disorienting and uncertain time. We recognize that you might be feeling anxious or overwhelmed, or afraid or frustrated, you know, or not really knowing quite how you feel, or sort of feeling all of those things at once. You know, and you know, that we feel like that's really normal, right? That's just a really human response to what's going on right now. And it really underscores that sources of strength is as important as ever. That in this time that we are leaning into our strengths, that we're tapping into how to healthfully cope with complex and big emotions, that we're looking at how we're compassionately reaching out to and connecting with others. And so we really want to be talking about how we're doing that. But kind of in the midst of some of that uncertainty and some of that things, I think it's also helpful to sort of just look at where we can get a little bit of clarity and where we can provide some facts. And so wanted to just give you all a little bit of an update on some of where we are, and just kind of talk a few logistical pieces. I don't even know if that's an actual word, logistical, but so at this point, we are keeping up with the CDC guidelines, limiting group sizes of 10 or more. So we are currently postponing and rescheduling all sources of strength trainings, as I'm sure you all were assuming that we would do. You know, as a national organization, we're in conversations with our contracts and our clients and our contacts, and schools and districts across the country and local public health departments, and kind of monitoring the situation. But if you do have local trainings in your area, we do recommend that you postpone and reschedule those trainings now for the health of everybody, you know, and that this has been a disappointing turn of events, that we are off the road and not training and doing the work that we love to do. But we're also public health professionals, you know, and we know that, you know, we're also prevention public health professionals. And so we know that the best way to get ahead of crisis, you know, is to practice good upstream prevention and to mitigate risk where possible, and to promote health where possible. And so trying to move upstream. So right now, that looks like being off the road, social distancing, staying home, washing our hands regularly, and well, if there's one thing I think I've learned from coronavirus is how inadequately I was washing my hands previously. 20 seconds is kind of a long time. So we are growing and learning together. But again, we encourage you to participate with us in practicing good public health and looking after our neighbors and our communities by practicing social distancing at this time, by postponing all trainings. But we did want to provide some logistics that we are still moving forward with registrations and planning for our T4Ts this summer. And for our elementary coaches training. So the first ones of those are scheduled to start in June. And so we are obviously continuing to monitor the situation. As you all know, it is an evolving situation, day by day, hour by hour, and week by week. And so we will certainly reschedule those trainings should the need arise. We will continue to look at best practice recommendations from public health institutions and travel advisories and things like that. But in the meantime, we do want to be proactive about, we would love to be able to do our summer trainings of train the trainers and elementary coaches trainings for those launches. And so if you have been or are thinking you would like to participate in those, we would really invite you to go ahead and register, to go ahead and start moving forward on the contracting and on the logistics for those things, so that we can be ready to go if we are able to hold those and be able to really foster and support the growth and expansion and sustainability and scalability of sources of strength across the country and in your communities, and the launch of elementary across the country and in your communities as well. And so please continue to register and work with us on that and be proactive in that. And then, like we said, we will monitor that if we need to change those pieces. And for those of you that have grants or funding deadlines that you're bumping up against, or you're wanting to be kind of proactive in how you're looking at that, we are also happy to work with you to prepay for next year's trainings or sustaining licensing kits or packets or things like that. So we can certainly do invoicing and contracting and all of that work now to get some of that work done while we're all in social distancing mode. And certainly if that is something that is of interest or feasible for your organization, we would invite you to do that. That would be helping us out, but also I think helping you all out to be able to be looking at how we're being proactive and planning for next year. And so now that we kind of got some of those logistics and some of the sort of those circumstances out of the way, what we want to sort of model what we talk about in the training, right? Of acknowledging, honoring the situation, but also pivoting and shifting towards strength. And we really, most of you probably got the email that we sent out. Most likely that's how you found out about this webinar. But we want to reiterate that fact that the work of sources really hasn't changed. That our goal is we want to be agents of change. We want to lean into our strengths, do our own wheel work. We want to build strengths in our lives, in the lives of our teams, our students, our schools, our communities, our families. And we know, it's interesting in this time of talking a lot about contagion, and how often at Sources of Strength we talk about this positive social contagion, right? That we've learned that hope and help and strength are contagious, and that we can create epidemics of hope and contagions of strength. And in some ways, maybe that language is a little tricky right now when we're facing what we're facing. But also knowing that those things are still true, and that we want to kind of match what we're seeing with that spread of hope and of connection and of help and of strength, and keeping that in mind, that this is not a time to abandon sources of strength, that it's a time to really lean in to those strengths. So we are going to continue to, as we navigate those times of kind of uncertainty and fear, lean into our strengths and lean into community and lean into each other. We're going to continue to do the work that we've done for the last 20 years, spending our time and our energy and our relationship and our resources to empower a well world, and spreading messages of hope and help and strength. And we feel incredibly privileged that you all are joining with us in that mission and in that work. And it's really humbling to me and inspiring to me to see hundreds of faces of people around the country, around the world that are joining us in that are leveraging your expertise and your voice and your care and your compassion and your skills into what we're doing, and that's just a really powerful thing. So we want to continue to do that together. You know, when schools may be closed and trainings may be canceled, but you know, our strengths aren't. Positive friendships are not canceled, though they might look different in this time, and healthy activities aren't canceled, though we might be getting creative around how we're expressing those. And family support and mentors and generosity and spirituality, they're not canceled. They are the things that are going to get us through this. They are the life-giving relationships and practices and rhythms that are going to support us to be healthy. And medical access and physical health and mental health, you know, again, as important as ever. And doing our best. We are going to do our best to help you and help your communities to be well, to name and notice your emotions, to navigate those in a healthy way, to practice calming and healthy coping, to build relationships and connections and compassion and care, even from a social distance. So as we kind of move forward into the rest of the webinar, we're going to sort of look at two different parts. First, we want to share some of what we've been working on. Our team, it's been really, really inspiring for me too, just to see how our team has gotten pulled off the road and done a complete 180, shifted lanes, shifted gears, and started putting together resources for this. And so all this week we've been working on putting together resources for our teams. So we want to share some of what we've been working on with you, but then we also want to hear from you. What would be helpful? What can we do to be supporting you? What would be resources? What would be rhythms of communication that we can be hearing from you? So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie at this point, who's one of our national trainers. And Carrie is going to share a little bit about some of the resources that we've been putting together for teachers and for those of you that might be now shifting into an online setting with your students.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. It is a pleasure to really be with all of you. So the first resource that we're going to share with you is for the educators. We know quite a few of you on the call today are educators. And so first off, we want to just celebrate you. You've had to do a 180 yourselves in terms of curriculum and uploading your whole new way of teaching, and to do that in an online format. And so we just want to say, wow, take a moment to celebrate your accomplishments, the new things that you learned along the way, the new strengths that you're able to really access. But also, more importantly, we want to celebrate you. We think that your work and the work that you do is really important. Hopefully you can see my screen. We've created some resources, as Scott mentioned, for you, and I want to just highlight where these are on the website, sourcesofstrength.org, and it's at the very top, how to practice sources of strength from home. And really, I just want to, this is a landing spot for you, and I'll walk us through some of the resources we've created for you as educators. But first, I want to invite you to think about how can you use these resources to practice wellness for yourself. We are servants, community public servants, and so it's important that we're taking care of ourselves in this process. And so some of the resources that we have to share with you first are an educator self-care check-in. So this is our special quarantine version with different activities that you can use during school hours, like writing a thank you note to a student or to a colleague, to a family member, all kinds of great things. Just some thankfulness similar to what Mish walked us through this morning, making positive phone calls. In a time where we have a little bit more social distance, those personal connections of a phone and a voice over the phone can be really powerful. So we invite you to do this for yourself, because we know that by practicing generosity and practicing self-care, we're moving towards wellness. And that's part of what we're doing, right? Empowering a well world together. Another resource we have for you as educators is a self-care card, similar to the one that's in the peer leader, the training manual. Not the training manual, the Adult Advisor Field Guide, but we've actually specialize this one just for educators. Thinking about you. There is a version also on the website for your students that you can share with them as well. But again, we want to invite you into practicing your own wellness first. So with that, I want to read the quote that we often hear in these times from Mr. Rogers. He says, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.'" And we are the helpers. Us collectively, everyone on this call and everyone watching the recording, we're the helpers. And so we want to give you some resources that are going to be helpful for you, not add to in any way the things that you're already having to do online, but really we want it to be an opportunity for you to be able to add care and connection into what you're already doing. So some of the resources that we have created for you, oh, I'm not sure what happened, but here on this document, well, we'll just go with it. This is linked on our website, Educator Online Classroom Resources, and we've got links to all the things I just showed you, but then also some sharing prompts around the 8 strengths. Starting with thankfulness, so you can add these into your online classes if you're doing Zoom or Google Classroom, that kind of thing. You can use those as resources. But we've also created some classroom integration tips here, some ideas of ways that you can integrate strength language into what you're doing in the classroom. In the online classroom. And the great thing about all of these resources is they're not just available digitally for those who are accessing online format, but they can be printed, or you can take these ideas and make them resources that can be printed and sent to students who don't have access to technology at these times. So we would try to make it as accessible as possible for you. So all of these things are here, and also some links to some other great resources like our awesome emotion check-in. So all of this is on our website and ready for you to use now. You can download, send it. Also, just access to the wheel. Some of our students may not know about the wheel, and so how can we share that with them? So thank you. We love you. We are so thankful for the ways that you are being a helper. So I'm going to pass it off to Dan, who's going to share some peer leader resources with us for those who are leading peer leader teams.
Great, thank you, Carrie. And as the world has shifted and we're now working from home and learning from home, we want to remind folks that the mission of Source of Strength remains the same. And we need to be meeting with and encouraging our peer leaders to be agents of change in this really challenging and nuanced time, and also connectors to help. Even more so than ever before, we are going to rely on peer leaders to be connecting their friends, their peers, to the help and services that are available. And so the mission is still accessible and ever more important than before. If we don't keep meeting as a team, we'll miss out on this unique opportunity to partner with our peer leaders and to message to their friends and model this for their families and caregivers and grandparents and siblings and foster families and adopted families. And we really want to help encourage peer leaders not just to survive during this time, but to thrive, right? We're seeing a lot of information circulating online and through social media about risk, and it's important to know, in terms of illness and injury, how we can prevent that and how we can facilitate a conversation about reducing isolation and increasing connection, even at a social distance. And so we really want to practice wellness in an age of sickness, right? We're trying to prevent illness from spreading, but even the absence of illness is not health. We need to really encourage peer leaders to be agents of change to increase health, even at a social distance, that we want to not just talk about the leading causes of death or of illness, infection. We want to talk about the leading causes of life. And so how can we do that? And the medium through Source of Strength is to empower our peer leaders to practice a community of strength and to share messages of hope, help, and strength, even in the midst of this season. And so how do we help them connect to help if they're worried about their friends when they need it? And also, how do we help them practice strength on an ongoing basis? So we've created a whole bunch of resources. I'm going to share my site. Hopefully you can see that. Carrie was just showing that landing page, but I want to highlight some of the resources in terms of supporting peer leaders. And so the first one is, how do you shift your peer leader meetings to an online context, right? That's a big shift. We're used to playing games and sharing and planning in person, but we need to be able to now do that in a social distancing format and online. So we've created a whole bunch of resources of what we've dreamed up thus far and how we imagine it taking place, of how and when to meet. That includes suggestions for apps to use and ways to organize yourself online to facilitate different meetings, maybe in subgroups, because it's fairly difficult. We've already discovered it caps at about 100. If you have a peer team larger than that, it might be great to break that down into sizes of 20 to 30. So a whole bunch of different ideas about how to group those students and meet with them, and tips for meetings. And you know, we have the beauty of being able to bring along other friends for these meetings if possible. So they could bring along siblings or parents or their furry pets and friends for these meetings. Let's have some fun in the face of a really challenging time. So we've got some resources, and we'll keep adding to it, of how to do the basic planning meeting formula of 1 part fun, 1 part sharing, and 1 part planning. So lots of different ideas. We're going to be releasing new ones as we come up with them, or as you out there in the field share with us how to play games on Zoom, how to do sharing components through mediums, and also how do we make sure that we reach students who maybe don't have internet through that medium, these mediums as well. So a whole bunch of resources in terms of that, as well as planning and thinking about the campaigns that your team continue to run, as well as Janelle in just a moment is going to release how we do that at a national level. So a whole bunch of ideas for our planning meetings. We have an agenda on the website of what a meeting might look like that would be helpful for you all to structure your meetings. And then we also encourage peer leaders to use and tap into the resources we have available here in terms of filling out their own self-care card of how they're taking care of themselves. There's a little bit of an adapted gratitude journal there that could be used and share with your peer leaders. And then everything that's in the back of your field guide in terms of tear out resources, a tangled ball of emotions. We have that strength coloring check-in that's in your field guide and on the website. You can also use a format of checking in with your emotions with your team, hearing how they're doing. And then our team threw together this week a really phenomenal board game activity to do with Source of Strength, where you develop your own board game and plot out what are the different pieces and challenging people to gamify their strengths in this challenging time. So check that out. And then Misha also mentioned the quarantine bingo. So maybe challenging your entire team, not only to identify how are they caring for themselves, how are they sharing with their peers, but what are ways that we can really make it fun to practice health, well-being, and strength during this challenging time. So check all that out on the website. I'm going to dive into it any further. I want to hand off to Janelle, who's going to run us through how are we running a campaign nationally that we're inviting people into.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. I'm sad my microphone wasn't unmuted earlier, because then you could have heard me cackling when you pulled Eski up onto your lap. I didn't prepare any props or any special guests. I didn't even know that was an option. I'm feeling so jealous. And I'm also feeling a little bit overwhelmed with how good it feels to be on the call with all of my friends. That's what I said in the comment box. I'm just delighted to be here with you all. The other thing I'm really delighted about, for those of you who are T for Ts who have spent some time with us in the last year, you know maybe that my favorite part of this work is when we get to do a peer leader simulation, a meeting together at the T for Ts where I get to pretend to be a Sources of Strength school coordinator. It feels like it is my dream job come true. And then the simulation ends and I realize I already have my dream job. And what's fun about working Sources from home right now is that I'm getting to step into that role as a Sources of Strength campaign coordinator amongst our staff. One of the things that's most true about Sources of Strength is that whoever is working within the program needs to have authenticity in how they're doing their own wheel work and how we are using our wheel work to inform the way that we lean into strength and practice resilience in our own lives and in the lives of our social networks. And then how we model that together as a staff has the ability to influence and impact the rest of our colleagues, our cohort, our community, which is you. So our national team is going to be functioning like a peer leader team and rolling out a templated What Helps Me campaign. But what we're calling it is What Helps Us. Hashtag What Helps Us. All right. I know my strengths, and my strengths are not technical. So I'm not going to be sharing my screen with anybody. What I want you to know is you can start to follow the hashtag now. Oh, wait, I missed it again. Hashtag What Helps Us. And as you do, you're going to start to see information from sources of strength on our social media platforms, our Instagram primarily. And if you haven't been following already, you may have missed some of our staff videos as we're taking some time to reflect on the strengths that are helping us. But we're going to continue to use all different mediums to share the stories of how we are navigating big emotions and what kinds of activities or relationships or practices or institutional supports we're accessing to help us. So we're going to be using art. You don't have to be an artist to use your art. So this is my quick stick figure drawing. Perhaps you can tell that it's Mish, right? Mish is one of my positive friends. My coworker is also my neighbor who has been supporting me in this time. I'm socially distanced pretty hard in like a legit quarantine. And so sometimes she drops off books for me outside and I go to recover them when she leaves. So you can use your art either to tell the stories of strength that you're tapping into right now. Today at 1 p.m., Misha's going to be hosting a live doodle on Instagram, drawing as a real artist, a true visual artist, what gives her strength, and you can participate. But maybe you can use that strength to communicate to your broader community. Use art to make signs that go up in your window or signs and banners that go up in your community, encouraging people, offering positivity, warmth, and gratitude. You also can be using photography or photography for those of you who like to use your camera phones to upload photos of yourself. So everyone right now, if you're not on a phone, I want you to pull your phone out and take a quick picture of a gallery view, maybe of this webinar, of yourself as maybe a selfie with your a screen in the background, tapping into strength, tapping into resource with sources of strength right now. And you can post it online under the hashtag, what is it? What helps us? That's right. I can't hear you, but I'm sure you all answered in unison, what helps us. Another modality that we're going to be using is thinking about presentations. We brainstormed yesterday an idea of creating a template to allow students to host basically their own personal TED Talks. Let's talk. TED Talk, right? How can we have our students become an expert on the way that they are practicing strength in their own lives and then sharing that out with their friends? How can we facilitate that amongst our teams? We are going to be practicing that together as a staff, and we're inviting you to join us. So if you've ever seen one of these, it's a source of strength peer leader guide. Hopefully this wheel is not new information to you. When you turn your peer leader guide over to the back, you can see all of our social media information, our website. There's also a QR code if you did a training sometime this spring and you didn't yet do a survey to evaluate your trainer, particularly my trainings, you can fill those out now that you've got some free time. But if you follow us online, you're going to be able to engage with our national staff as we continue to reflect on what big emotions are coming up for us and what kinds of strategies we can adopt to be able to help us and help each other. So look forward to connecting with you online in the days to come. Some of you are currently running campaigns with your teams. We imagine that some of you are already gathering your students together. And as you move forward, there might be some more support and resources that you need. So I'm going to toss it over to Cody, who is in charge of support and resourcing, to be able to talk through what we're currently doing and what more information we need from you.
Thank you, Janelle. Hi, everybody. Janelle, you want to nod and tell me you can hear me good?
I totally can.
All right. Thank you so much. Hey, for those of you who are now watching in the future the recording of this, I want to take a chance to apologize again about getting maxed out on our participants. We're really sorry about that. I hope this recording has been useful. The team has shown you all a lot of our resources that we've made over the last really 3 days. And we promise that we have more coming. One thing I do want to highlight again on this same webpage, I can bring it up one more time. Let me share my screen with everybody. And here that comes. You should see it down at the bottom of the page. We have a nice form for, as you come up with your own ideas of what's working, implementing sources of strength virtually. If you would share that with us through this forum, that'll help us kind of catch that and try to disseminate that through this page and more pages that we'll probably be adding to our website and through social media. So yeah, please make use of that as you come up with your own ideas and are finding things that are working. And let us know so we can help share that with our friends all around the country, all around the world at that. We had a question in our T4T Slack from Tom out of Sheridan. I think Tom is listening in right now. And yeah, Tom was just mentioned he's going to probably start a Google Classroom. Wondering what else folks are going to be doing. You've seen some of the stuff that we've started putting together. We are wondering just, yeah, how will we be more supportive of you? What kind of support are you looking for? I have another poll I'm going to put up just on what kind of communication do you think is most useful? Is it, we were going to intend for this to kind of be a quote unquote virtual office hour. So maybe we will start doing more smaller, purposely smaller webinars so that we can have a little bit more of a back and forth discussion. Would you rather just be getting emails with the updates? Do you want to have a conference call with me or somebody else on the training staff? Feel free to use this poll. You can go ahead and put it in the group chat. We might not be able to answer all your questions right now, but then we'll have them in two places and I'll feel safer with the technology if people put their questions or answers in two spots. And the second part of that poll also just asked, how ready are you feeling? My wife is a high school English teacher here in North Dakota, and right now we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. We're not sure what her district is going to ask of her as far as distance learning, and so she's feeling a lot of pressure to kind of turn her whole curriculum into an online thing. And so for those of you that are teachers, we understand this is probably right now kind of the map is not really filled in right now. So let us know how you're feeling so we can just get a pulse on our friends around the country. I'm just going to give you another minute or so on that poll. For those of you who haven't met me, again, my name is Cody Sletton. I am the support coordinator here at Sources of Strength, and so I would love to get on the phone with you and just talk through what's going on with your team, how you're going to handle this new time. Cody, C-O-D-Y, at sourcesofstrength.org is my email. I'll probably our follow-up email, I'll put a link to my kind of scheduling platform. So it's a nice, easy way for you to schedule a call with me if you'd like. So I'm gonna go ahead and end that poll, and I'm gonna unmute Mark and Scott as they kind of wrap up this time. Let me just. All right, Scott, you should be unmuted, and I'm Mark. I'm gonna let.
Cody, it looks like the poll was not working. I didn't see it, and I'm seeing a lot of things in the chat box saying that it didn't come through.
Let's see.
So do you want to try to? Can we launch that?
It brings up a good point too. For those of you that are looking into moving your curriculum and whatnot into Zoom and doing meetings with your students, whether it's classroom or peer leaders, feel free to email me because I've had a lot of hiccups. So maybe you could learn from some of my mistakes. Scott and Mark, you're both unmuted. I'll leave that poll up for a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Okay. So it looks like the poll isn't showing up for at least a lot of people. Is anybody seeing the poll? If you are, maybe type into the chat box. Cody, do you see the poll when you click it?
Yes, I see the poll. I do not see any votes coming in. So here we are.
The other thing that we might do if we end up not getting the poll working is we invite you to please fill out that form on the website with your ideas. But also what we'll do is we are recording this webinar, and we will, sorry, you all are over here, but the screen's over here. So we are recording this webinar, and we will be sending that out for you to reference or for you to share with others. And then we can also include in there just a quick Google survey that sort of replaces the poll. So you can just go onto that and let us know, what do you think would be most helpful? What can we be sending your way? Just letting us know those things. You can also feel free to type any of those recommendations or any of those things into the chat right now, because we will download this chat and search through that. So if there's like, hey, these are the things that would be really helpful to me, fill that out, and then we'll send out that Google survey. And so if you have a moment, just kind of indicate what you feel like we could be doing, whether that's things that we could be creating and resources that we could be developing, or rhythms of communication and how we might be checking in. One last thing before we kind of close is I also wanted to recognize the fact that, that we would advise everybody, if you haven't already, to chat with your school mental health team around what the referral protocol and process looks like in this time. That we certainly know that times of crisis can leave a lot of people feeling more vulnerable, and that when we're wrestling with a lot of anxiety or different things, that we might have some students and some staff that might be struggling, but we also don't have our normal rhythms of connection. It's not just coming down to the counselor's office right now. And so we want to be able to resource, and talk to our students about what to do. That idea of them being connectors to help. If they're seeing somebody that's struggling, how are they checking in? How are they connecting with people? But also, what should they do? How do they route that if there's not the normal rhythm of, well, I'm going to go and come and walk them down to the counseling office. So if you haven't done that, we would really encourage you, pull together your mental health team. And think through, what do we want students to do? What do we want staff to do? What is sort of the communication pipeline? What is sort of our process for reviewing those and intervening with those things if we are seeing risk assessments or things that have to get done? So pull together your team, have those conversations, and we would love to hear from you too around what are you seeing as best practice? What are you seeing be effective? What kind of strategies are you all using? But make sure that we have a plan, and let's make sure that we're communicating that plan and that pathway to our students so they know how to connect a friend that they're worried about to help during this time when we're not in school. And so sort of as we close, two final things that we want to do is, one, we while we are not traveling right now, we have flown on enough airplanes and heard the recommendation enough times that we have to put, our own mask on first, right, before assisting others. And what a great metaphor for this kind of work, that all of you are on this webinar because you are in the line of work of helping other people. And because you care about the people in the community, but we need to be taking care of ourselves as well during this time. And so what we will do is invite you to just take a moment to reflect on the wheel. And let me see if I can do some sharing here. Right, let's move over. You see, there we go. There's the wheel. So would invite you just to take a quick moment, and we were going to have another poll, but because the poll's not working, maybe you can just think about it. But want you to think about, what are two of these strengths? What are two areas of the wheel that are feeling strong for you right now, that you feel like you're showing up for, or are showing up for you? And then take a moment to think about, what's one that you feel like you would like to work on or tap into or access tonight, today, before your head hits the pillow tonight, that you would like to find a way to tap into that strength. So for me, I feel like my family support has really been a strength for me. I'm excited to go home for lunch after this and see Arlo and see if I can get him to walk for me. But just when I sit down with my kids, it just puts a lot of things in perspective, and it helps me sort of take a deep breath and have a big picture. And so, but I think something that I'm wanting to work on is the mental health side of things. That it is stressful. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so for me, one of the ways that looks is I'm trying to practice mindfulness, and I'm trying to practice self-compassion. That it's sometimes easy for me to be hard on myself or feel like I'm not doing enough or should be doing more. or need to be kind of all things for all people. And so for me, it's practicing self-compassion of that I'm, telling myself, I'm trying my best, telling myself this would be hard for anybody, telling myself some of those things so that that I can also have realistic expectations and treat myself kindly as I try to work through this as well. And so that's one of the ways that I'm going to try to do that, is continuing to check in and have some of that mindfulness practice. So would invite you to take a moment. Which ones do you feel like have been strong for you, and what's one that you want to work on, that you want to utilize today before you go to bed? And then maybe even if you want, like share some of those things, what you're going to practice, what you're going to do today in the comment box, and then others can sort of glean from some of those ideas as well. So take a quick moment to do that. And then as we close, one, just kind of last logistics thing, we will be sending out that email, that follow-up, but also for further questions, if you want to connect with us, you can also call us, text us, email us, Slack us, let us know, and we can set up calls. We are here to support you. So please reach out to anybody on staff, and we will be reaching out to connect with you and support you and have one-on-one conversations, or hosting more small group conversations as well. As we close, we're gonna turn it over. Let me stop my share here. We are going to turn it over to our founder, my dad, Mark Lomery, and some of you maybe have seen the blessing that he wrote that we put in the email. But we thought that might be a really nice way to end our time together today. So to take a moment and kind of set that reflection and intention around the work and some of our hope for the world as we move forward through this time. So I'm going to turn it over to my dad, and he's gonna close us with some of those words.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Am I switched over? Okay. Hey, one of the things, I think Thursday last week I was in Savannah getting ready for some canceled trainings, and flew back home. And as everything started to shift really quickly, one of the things that I do sometimes is turn to both writing and as well as spirituality. And it was something that I turned to this weekend and came up with this bit of a blessing that I'll read right now. And I just want to say thank you all so much. We're all working together, and as we move forward, we want you to be kind of brutally honest with us about materials that we're putting out, what's helpful. If you've got something better, let us know about it. We want to just be sharing and really spreading communication. So here's this little blessing that I wrote. May we have the wisdom to use our knowledge to help, to heal, and to calm fears. May we use our strengths to remain physically isolated but relationally connected. May we be creative in finding new healthy activities that energize us and calm us and balance our lives. May we practice generosity, not siloing ourselves emotionally, nor hoarding physical items, but maintaining a spirit of help. May we devote time and presence through phone and screen and social media to those that may be really feeling alone. May we practice thankfulness daily, naming what we're thankful for. Can we say those, share those, and even sing those thankful things daily? Even in the midst of our difficulties and challenges and burdens, can we find those things to be thankful for? May we be open to growth during this time. May we share what we do have to those in financial and emotional and physical and spiritual need. And may we ask for help when we need it. May our medical and our mental health community receive the resources that they need. May they have fortitude. And may those system dreamers find new and creative ways to reach those in greatest needs. So as we draw back toward our families, our tribes, our nations, may we be reminded that in our spirit that we're all relatives across the earth. May we be reminded in our hearts that no matter where the virus hits, it's not them, but us. So thank you so much, you all, the great work and that you're all doing out there. We want to be doing this together and sharing. So thank you for participating in this, and take care, be safe and well, and use those strengths. Thank you.